All right, so today we are going deep, really deep into a pinball machine that's, how should I put it? Well, it's a little bit out there. You ready for this?
Oh, absolutely. Always up for a deep dive into pinball quirkier corners.
That's what we're here for. Today's subject, Dr. Dude and his excellent ray. Not your typical pinball theme, right?
Definitely not your medieval knights or space adventures, that's for sure.
But that's exactly why we're diving in. We've got some great sources on this one, talking about the design, the sound, and just like the whole vibe of this game.
And why it stuck around in people's memories all these years.
Exactly. Why has it stuck around? That's what we want to unpack today.
Yeah, it's a good question, especially because it wasn't like a massive commercial hit or anything. But it definitely left a mark.
It definitely did. So, Dr. Dude, 1990. That puts it, right between those simpler, older machines and the ones with all the fancy animations on the screen?
Right on the cusp. You know, you had those early alphanumeric displays, and then, boom, dot matrix graphics start showing up. Dr. Dude kind of bridges those two worlds.
And the team behind it, they weren't afraid to, be a little different. Dennis Nordman designed it, Chris Granner did the sounds, and Greg Farris handled the art.
Yeah, and they all brought this, this sense of humor to it. It's got that late 80s, early 90s feel. I'm talking weird science, underground comics, that whole scene.
Okay, now I'm picturing it. That kind of wacky, almost cartoonish energy. Did those influences actually make it into the design, though?
Oh, absolutely. For one, just look at the whole premise. A scientist trying to reach excellence through a love meter. You don't see that every day in pinball. Most games were going for serious themes, fantasy, space stuff. This was, different.
Refreshing, even.
Totally.
Right.
And Greg Farris' art really brought that out. Colorful characters, a little exaggerated, not afraid to embrace the absurdity. It matched the pop culture it was drawing from. And, there's this funny story about the love meter itself. Apparently, there were some production hiccups with that mechanism early on.
Huh, interesting. Those behind-the-scenes things can sometimes lead to some of the most unique features.
For sure. But about that love meter, it sounds pretty central to the whole Dr. Dude experience.
It does. But besides all the themes and visuals, we gotta talk gameplay. There's this whole thing with the love meter measuring your coolness, a molecular mixifier, and then the grand prize, the excellent jackpot. What was it like actually playing this thing?
Okay, so imagine this. The basic idea is to build up that coolness on the love meter. You hit certain targets, you get cooler. And as you get cooler, more stuff opens up for you. But the really cool part, if you'll pardon the pun, was the Mix Master.
Go on, I'm intrigued.
It's this device right on the playfield, and you can actually change the color of the pinball. It becomes this multicolored ball, pure excellence. But here's the catch. It wasn't totally random.
So some strategy involved.
Absolutely. Skillful shots, a little timing, you can actually guide the ball toward that transformation. And a lot of times you needed that multicolored ball to hit the excellent jackpot. So mastering the Mix Master was key.
Sounds pretty rewarding when you pulled it off.
Oh yeah, there's nothing like watching that ball transform and knowing you've got a shot at the big prize. And speaking of pulling things off, let's talk about something just as crucial as the gameplay in Pinball the Sound.
Ah, yes, the sounds. This is where Chris Granner really shines, right? I mean, we're talking over-the-top sound effects, digitized voices, and of course that legendary X-Celine.
It's iconic. You hear that and you instantly know what game it is.
Totally. But what made the sound so essential to this particular game, it wasn't just there for background noise, was it?
Oh no, not at all. Sound is huge in pinball. I mean, it makes the whole experience, it immerses you in the world, it gets you pumped up, it tells you when you're doing well. And in Dr. Dude, Chris Granner nailed it. Those exaggerated sound effects, they just fit perfectly with that whimsical, over-the-top theme.
So it wasn't just hitting flippers and hoping for the best.
Nope. Dr. Dude definitely rewarded players who actually thought about their moves. Knowing how to use those transfer lanes to keep the ball under control, that was crucial.
Yeah, the notes I have here mention that strategic use of those lanes could really maximize your love meter progress.
Exactly. Good players, they would use those lanes to set up specific shots, the kind that would boost their coolness more efficiently. It was all about building up to those higher scoring opportunities, the tougher challenges. And then, of course, there's that whole Mix Master strategy we talked about, aiming for that multicolored ball and the excellent jackpot. It all came together in this really satisfying flow.
So it had depth, It wasn't just a mindless bash the flippers kind of game.
But not at all. It had layers, and it rewarded you for mastering them.
Now, even with all that going for it, Dr. Dude wasn't exactly the biggest selling pinball machine of all time.
It had its dedicated fans, though, a bit of a cult following even back then.
Right. But even though it wasn't a blockbuster, our sources say it still had a pretty big influence on later games. They specifically mention Party Zone, which came out just a year later. Apparently, it took a lot of inspiration from Dr. Dude's style, that whole exaggerated and comical thing.
Oh, absolutely. Party Zone really ran with that lighthearted, almost zany vibe. And it proved that there was a market for pinball machines that didn't take themselves too seriously,
Right.
ones that were willing to be a little silly.
And even though Dr. Dude might have been considered, I don't know, maybe a bit niche in 1990, it's a collector's item now, right?
Big time. People love its unique character, those innovative gameplay mechanics, the whole package. Plus, it's got that nostalgic appeal for those who played it back in the day.
Yeah, brings back memories. So, Dr. Dude and his excellent Ray, more than just a pinball machine with a quirky name, it really represents a fascinating little slice of pinball history.
Right. It bridges different technology eras,
Yes.
embraces this unique sense of humor, and throws in some genuinely innovative gameplay with that Mixmaster.
It was ahead of its time in a way.
You could say that. So, if you ever get the chance, I highly recommend giving Dr. Dude a try. It's a pinball experience unlike any other. You might even call it, dare I say it, excellent.
Excellent indeed. And for all you pinball collectors out there, tell us about your Dr. Dude experiences. What makes it special for you? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And here's something to think about. In a world that often chases mainstream success, why do you think some of the more offbeat, niche creations end up having such a lasting impact? It's a curious thing, isn't it?
It really is. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, happy pinballing.